Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and today I was going to review Monkey Prince because it's a DC one, and there's a lot of Marvel this week, and I felt like a change. But we sold out of Monkey Prince. What we have left, though, is Sabretooth. I ignored the weird printing error. It appears like this entire comic book is lopsided. Not sure why they've sent them out like this, but what are you going to do? I was not really excited to review Sabretooth. He's never been a character I found particularly interesting. I could say the same about Venom, though, and at least I'm reading Al Ewing around V's version of it. So, there's room to be surprised. There really is. And I was surprised, but in a very unusual way. We're going to talk about the artwork first, because it's quite simple to talk about this artwork. It feels very Marvel in-house style in a way that is entertaining and good. The coloring doesn't feel phoned in. It feels vaguely organic. There's some very early, heavy cross-hatching. I mean, take it all in, take in all the cross-hatching there. But other than that, it is perfectly functional and doesn't really do much until the comic book really gets into its stride, because this is, weirdly, a very heavy action-based comic book. Now, you're probably thinking, yes, Shorty, it's a Sabretooth comic book. We were expecting nothing but heavy, over-the-top, exceptionally viscerally violent action sequences. And you get plenty of them. Like, he just randomly kills a whole bunch of people. The X-Men go after him, and one of his ways of killing was to literally rip the front of Cyclops' face off and then use the energy blasts to destroy everyone else. It's crazy fun. Like, if you want that kind of thing, it's brilliant. I wasn't too impressed with that kind of thing. I suppose because I was expecting it, and getting your expectations played out kind of stops it being like just really fun. It's like I just watched a review of a video game, which is like the 8th or 9th in the series, and it's got a lot of jump scares. And the guy's literally, this kind of thing, it can only really be entertaining for a while. Sabretooth, I was expecting it, I got it. Within about 5 or 6 pages of the comic book, it was like, well, surely we're done now, and it just carried on. But then it got good, then it got interesting, because people who don't know, Sabretooth was sent into the pit of Krakoa as a punishment for killing humans, with the idea being that he will never escape. But then it started him apparently having escaped and going on his killing sprees. And then he is basically in an actual prison with somebody offering him a deal. And the realization comes, and it seems to take Sabretooth longer than it takes us, the reader, to realize that he's never free. There's a particularly nice moment where you see him literally chained to the ground, manacles around his wrists, but then in another sequence, those heavy metal chains have turned into plant matter. And it's like, oh, yeah, I mean, I was already leaning towards this realization, but I like how they played it out. The realization being he's always been there, and effectively he's just going through the motions, never growing, never changing, just kind of doing whatever he wants, which raises some interesting moral, ethical questions about what prison systems are for and how they work and what they can actually accomplish. The deal he ends up going for is he will still be in prison, he will still never be allowed to leave, but he'll be able to remember what he's done and move on. I think the idea there being that he's never going to be able to grow, he's never going to be able to change until he actually accepts himself for who he is and what he's done, and kind of lives with the repercussions of that. And if he can just kill people and the next day they're back, he doesn't have to worry about that. So it then changes tack considerably and gets far more interesting. You have, like, in just one page, he effectively becomes King Conan. And goes on a medieval rampage with a magical sword, branding people with his insignia. And this huge epic adventure, which you get the impression from context and storytelling, took Sabretooth years to accomplish, is done in a page. Next page, he's now Sabretooth and the Starjammers, and he's taking over not just the Hyborian Age, but literally planetary systems, but still doing it in the same kind of way. And he comes to this conclusion after having an internal meeting between the various aspects of his personality, realizing that while in this prison, they do still have the freedom to do pretty much whatever they want. So what are they going to do with that power? Now, this sounds brilliant, but it isn't freedom. It's still just living a life where you personally can deal with repercussions if you like to, but there isn't any for anyone else. Nobody is affected by what Sabretooth does. And that kind of internalization of what the problem is and how to solve it gets him asking some very interesting questions about who he is. Like, he's always been very proud of the fact that he knows who he is, that he is a monster, and he's always been absolutely fine with it. But is that monster everything? And then the realization, with a universe of freedom, he is still that, but finds it unchallenging. It ends with him literally being the king of hell, where he has done immeasurable cruelty to anyone who he wanted to. And rather than just disappearing alive to do it again later, he lives in the shattered remnants of that destroyed world. Then there's a little bit of a twist ending, which I'm not going to say anything about because I think it's going to be better if you're going to read it. But the art comes into its own with the brutal violence. Like, it does a really, really good job. But it's the story, it's the concept, the kind of high concept that they do for this one really was effective in a way I was not expecting. If you're going to get Sabretooth because you want a bunch of violence, you're not going to be let down. If you're going to get Sabretooth hoping it might do something different, you are certainly not going to be let down. That's it from me today, though. I am going to go. I'm back tomorrow. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.